President Trump spoke yesterday at the National Association of Black Journalists convention, where he was grilled by some lady on whether or not he believed that Kamala Harris is a DEI hire.
Some of your own supporters, including Republicans on Capitol Hill, have labeled Vice President Kamala Harris, who is the first Black and Asian American woman to serve as vice president and be on a major party ticket, as a DEI hire. Is that acceptable language to you? And will you tell those Republicans and those supporters to stop it?
How do you define DEI? Go ahead. How do you define
diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Is that what your definition?
That is
give me a
literally
definition
the words
then. Would you give me a definition
DEI.
of that? Give me a definition.
Sir,
of
I'm
that.
asking you a question,
No,
a
you
very
have to
direct
define
question.
it. Define it for me, if you would.
I just defined it, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a Black woman?
Well, I can say no.
Before we get to Trump's hilarious answer, I just want to read a few headlines from the days and weeks before Kamala was selected to be Biden's running mate. The question, you recall, do you think Kamala was only on the ticket because she's a Black woman? Washington Post, more than 200 women signed letter urging Biden to pick a Black woman as his running mate. This is from USA Today. Black male leaders say Biden will lose election if he doesn't choose Black woman as VP. New York Times. Black leaders want a Black woman as Biden's running mate, but who? Vox.com. The push for Joe Biden to choose a Black woman as his running mate explained. AP. Biden pressed to choose a Black woman as his running mate. Notice, it doesn't say push to pick Kamala Harris. It's just push to pick a Black woman. That's it. We got to have a Black woman. That's all that matters. Was Kamala Harris selected because she's a Black woman? I don't know, man. I'm just reading your headlines. Was Kamala Harris a DEI hire? Before we get to Trump's aforementioned hilarious answer, I want to present to you President Joe Biden, his answer on whether Kamala was a DEI hire.
To me, the values of diversity, equality, inclusion are literally, and that's not kidding, the core strengths of America. That's why I'm proud to have the most diverse administration in history. It taps into the full talents of our country and starts at the top with the vice president.
According to President Biden, Kamala was selected to advance DEI in those exact terms. According to the entire liberal media, Kamala was selected because she's Black and a woman. Those are their words, not mine. But that was then, this is now. And now that it's no longer politically helpful, the establishment media are going to deny, rewrite, and lie about that and every other part of Kamala's record. I'm Michael Knowles. This is The Michael Knowles Show. Parents are throwing cheese on their kids' heads in the latest viral trend. I have very strong thoughts about this viral trend. We'll get to that in a moment. First, though, folks, forget about the election, forget about the Olympics, forget about the men crushing women's skulls in the U.S. Olympics, or in the Olympics broadly, sanctioned by the U.S. We got important news. We got the Mayflower portable humidor. That's right, baby. This has been many months in the making. It was designed, it was built, it was sent on container ships. It's finally here. The Mayflower Cigars portable humidor. Very subtle design here. Mayflower with the logo from dawn to dusk. Perfect seal to keep your cigars nice and appropriately humidified. Good cushion in here, good foam. So you toss this in your briefcase, your backpack, your suitcase, your wherever, and you will be ready to protect your delicious Mayflower cigars. They are going to sell out. We don't have a ton. They've got this cool little band on here that's unusual on these things. It's really helpful. Go get it right now. We sold a lot of them yesterday. There's still going to be some today. I can't really guarantee that there will be many in stock after that. Also, you got to become a DW Plus member. Right now, you'll get unlimited access to our daily uncensored ad-free shows, live breaking news alerts, investigative journalism, the Libs want buried, dailywire.com/subscribe. Okay. President Trump is leaning into the DEI criticism. He's leaning into the left's arguments from identity politics. Here is Trump's answer to the lady from the Black Journalist Association.
Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is only on the ticket because she is a black woman?
Well, I can say no. I think it's maybe a little bit different. So I've known her a long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always identified as a black woman. She went to a historically black college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became a black person.
Just to be clear, sir, do you believe that she is...
I think somebody should look into that too when you ask continue in a very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question, sir. Do you believe that Vice President Kamala Harris is a DEI hire, as some Republicans have said?
I mean, I really don't know. Could be.
Could be. Biden says she is. You guys said she is. But, could be. I don't know. All I know is she used to be Indian. Now she's black. Where'd that come from? So many conservatives are clutching their pearls over this answer from Trump. And Trump's leaning into it even more. He had a rally later in Pennsylvania. Think about the courage. You're just almost murdered at a rally in Pennsylvania. You go back weeks later, say, yeah, whatever, you're not keeping me down. He leans into this during the rally. He posts a headline from Business Insider: California's Kamala Harris becomes first Indian-American U.S. Senator. So he's leaning into this issue that seems kind of trivial. Who cares? Kamala Harris is biracial. Her mom is Indian. Her dad is Jamaican. So not African-American. She doesn't have any African-American ancestry. There's nothing tying her to the specific legacy of slavery in America. It's Indian and Jamaican, but okay, for the left, that's sufficient. She's sufficiently swarthy that qualifies. Why is Trump leaning into this? So many really fancy conservatives are clutching their pearls saying, this is a terrible line of attack. This is awful. I don't think so. I don't think this should be the front of Trump's campaign. I think he can talk about other things like her failure on immigration. She was in charge of the border problem. He can talk about the economy. He can talk about all the big issues that really matter. But I have no problem with this line of attack as a little cherry on top of the campaign Sunday. And if you listen to the people in that room, not the very hostile interviewer, but just the audience members, they were getting a kick out of Trump's answer. You hear them laughing at Trump's answer. Trump is a charming guy, and he's a great showman, and people were kind of getting a kick out of it. The way you know that this was overall a net positive for Trump is that the leaders of the Black Journalist Association are losing their minds over this. They're saying we shouldn't have invited him. This was a mistake. You look all over social media, they are regretting their decision to invite him. Why? Are they regretting their decision to invite him because Trump hurt his campaign? No. The only reason they would regret their decision to invite him is because Trump maybe helped himself a little bit. He was kind of charming. He was kind of human. The other reason why this line of attack, not as the main plank of a campaign, but as just a little spice, a little seasoning on top, the reason that it's effective is, first of all, it's kind of funny. Just, loosen up a little bit, guys. We don't have to all be humorless scolds. It's a funny bit. It is true that Kamala, for the first part of her political career, positioned herself as the first Indian American, because that was historic. It wasn't historic to be the first black senator. She's not the first black senator, but she could say I'm the first Indian American woman senator. So she leaned into that, the historic firsts of the left's identity politics. And then when it suited her after the Senate, when she wanted to be on Joe Biden's vice presidential ticket, all of a sudden she was identifying as black. That was her. And now, she's putting on fake African-American vernacular accents, which she's never had. It appears nowhere in her household, in her upbringing, in her culture at all. So the reason that I think this line of attack is effective is it highlights Kamala's biggest vulnerability, which is that she's fake. She's a total fake. She doesn't believe anything. Do you remember she went on The Breakfast Club? A black radio show. And she talked about how she loved listening to Snoop Dogg in college. Oh yeah, she'd love lighting up the devil's lettuce and listening to Snoop. Snoop didn't debut his first album until after Kamala Harris was in college. So she just made that up. It's total fake news. She did it. She just said that because she thought that would appeal to the predominantly black audience of The Breakfast Club. But she just made it up. Kamala Harris doesn't really talk with a Southern jive accent, okay? She just made that up yesterday or 2 days ago to appeal to an audience. Is Kamala Harris too tough on crime, or is Kamala Harris too weak on crime? Does she want to bail out the rioters in Minnesota during the George Floyd riots? Yes. Does she want to prosecute people when she's the Attorney General of California? Yes. She just is whatever she thinks is going to get her elected and amass her more power. So Trump, whatever you think about Trump kind of is who he is. Right? You know, Trump's the same guy in front of the Black Journalist Association as he is in front of the NRA, as he is in front of CPAC, as he is in front of any other group, as he is at the Bitcoin convention. He's just that guy. So it emphasizes the strength of Trump, something that's attractive about Trump that is very unattractive about Kamala. And don't forget, not that Trump, there are differences here, so he's got to focus on more important things, but as a little seasoning on the campaign, this is the issue that destroyed Elizabeth Warren's career. Her fakeness over her ancestry is what destroyed her career. Now, you could say, well, Kamala actually is part Black. Yeah, kind of. She's not at all African-American, though. And unless you think that all Black people on planet Earth are exactly the same and they have the exact same culture, unless you think, I don't think that. You think that someone living in Nigeria has the same cultural milieu as someone growing up in Oakland. Then you can point out, yeah, she's a fake. She's pretending that she's African-American. She comes from the African-American experience. She doesn't have any of that. Doesn't have any of that at all. The only issue that I think she actually has been consistent on is she is radically in favor of infanticide through abortion. So the one issue that she's consistent on is one of the most horrifying and ghastly. Now, on that issue, you got to go check out Preborn. Go to preborn.com/Knowles. It's been over 2 years since the overruling of Roe v. Wade, which was supposed to be a great victory for the pro-life movement. And it was. However, the number of abortions has actually increased since then. And that is because the abortion pill is now more readily available than ever. New estimates show that more than 1 million babies were aborted in 2023. The abortion pill accounted for over 60% of them. Preborn is currently providing free ultrasounds and life-saving resources to expectant mothers, helping them choose life for their babies. They are on the front lines offering support and hope to those facing unplanned pregnancies. Thanks to the Daily Wire's partnership with Preborn, I'm excited to announce that we are able to make our powerful documentary, Choosing Life, available to all on Daily Wire Plus. This film serves as a crucial counterpoint to the left's narrative on abortion, presenting the undeniable truth about the humanity of the unborn. It is available to you now, free of charge, at dailywire.com. Join me in thanking Preborn for bringing this important work out from behind our paywall, and consider making a donation today to support their life-saving work. You can sponsor one ultrasound for $28. If you have the means, you can sponsor Preborn's entire network for a day for $5,000. I personally support this group. I strongly encourage you to give what you can too. Preborn.com/Knowles, K-N-W-L-E-S. Donate today. Preborn.com/Knowles or dial pound 250. Say keyword baby. That is pound 250, keyword baby. The Libs are in overdrive, lying about Kamala. I got to give a hat tip to End Wokeness for pointing this little treat out. Kamala Harris, according to PolitiFact, there is this nasty Republican charge that Kamala Harris backed taxpayer-funded health care for immigrants. And this, according to PolitiFact, is mostly false. If this were a Washington Post fact check, it'd have multiple Pinocchios. This is a lie. It's false. Where would Republicans come up with this crazy notion that Kamala Harris endorsed free taxpayer-funded government health care for all illegal aliens? Jake Tapper?
The bill also says, quote, every individual who is a resident of the United States is entitled to benefits for health care services under this act. Not every individual who's a citizen, but every individual who's a resident. Mm-hmm. So you support giving universal health care, Medicare for all, to people who are in this country illegally?
Let me just be very clear about this. I am opposed to any policy that would deny in our country any human being from access to public safety, public education, or public health, period.
Period. And she was perfectly clear. She is perfectly clear that she supports government-funded universal health care for illegal aliens. Period. Let me be perfectly clear. Good on Jake Tapper for asking the question. And it is also perfectly clear that PolitiFact is completely lying about it, as PolitiFact lies about a lot of things. PolitiFact, one of these left-wing opinion outlets, one of these left-wing activist organizations that masquerades, even more deceptively than many other left-wing organizations, masquerades as an objective, political, neutral fact checker. It's just the facts. But the fact is pretty clear there. I'm hearing it in Kamala's own words. The liberal establishment news says, don't believe your lying eyes, don't believe your lying ears. And of course, these are the people who were telling us that Trump wasn't really shot 2 weeks ago. No, forget about that. No, he wasn't. We don't even know if it was a bullet. Now, the FBI said there was never any question that it was a bullet. Yeah, no, you didn't see that bullet. Trump wasn't really shot. Men can really be women. Babies aren't really babies. Kamala Harris didn't say that thing you just heard her say. They are going to lie through their teeth. They will lie about anything. And we need to take that seriously because they have a lot of power. The establishment news media have done a pretty good job of memory holding the hair's breadth away assassination of Donald Trump 2.5 weeks ago. You talk to people on the street, say, hey, remember that time Trump almost got his head blown off after the Libs had been calling him Hitler and an existential threat to democracy for 8 years? Remember that? And there were all those kind of bizarre security lapses, and then the FBI and the Secret Service covered it up and lied about it. In the case of the FBI, perhaps multiple times. You remember? And people, I think many people will say, oh yeah, right. Wow, that feels like such a long time ago. It feels like such a long time ago because the news has memory hold it. Hey, you guys know Kamala Harris is the most left-wing senator. When she was in the Senate, she was to the left of Bernie Sanders. No, that can't be true. That can't be true. Hey, you know, Kamala Harris supports government-funded, taxpayer-subsidized healthcare for illegal aliens. No, that can't be true. Hey, you know, Kamala Harris raised money to bail out violent rioters in Minnesota after the George Floyd riots, and then the organization that she raised the money for, went on to bail out really violent criminals who committed all sorts of other crimes. No, that didn't happen. It can't have happened. It can't have happened because the media lied to me and told me that didn't happen. There are going to be a lot of people who are persuaded by that. Don't forget, after the media lied in collusion with the government, with the FBI, and with big tech platforms, when the government lied about the Hunter Biden laptop, which exposed the Biden family's crimes, and the federal government now admits that it exposed the Biden family's crimes, but at the time, the government said, no, this is Russian disinformation, big tech, shut it down. You couldn't even privately message it on some apps. After that election, 12% of Biden voters came out and said if they knew about the Hunter Biden laptop story, they wouldn't have voted for Biden. That obviously would have thrown the election. 12% said that. And the media lied. But they had the power to do what they wanted. And the media still have a lot of power. So now they're lying about this DEI thing. How dare you suggest Kamala's a DEI hire? Joe Biden said she was a DEI hire in those terms. Joe Biden used basically that exact phrase. He did refer specifically to DEI and said Kamala Harris is the great exemplar of this. But that was back when DEI was popular. In the intervening 3 years, DEI has become extraordinarily unpopular, and there have been laws passed against DEI. So now they got to run away from DEI. This is what Michael Anton at Claremont calls the celebration parallax. If you say Kamala Harris is a DEI hire and that's great, then you're okay. If you say Kamala Harris is a DEI hire and that's bad, then now it's false. Now it's suddenly that fact has become false. So DEI is on the way out. We've got some really great news. Auburn University has just announced that it will dissolve its Office of Inclusion and Diversity by August 15th. So coming up, got a couple weeks now. Why is Auburn dissolving the DEI office? Because Governor Kay Ivey banned DEI programs and certain DEI lessons. And colleges have until October 1st to comply with the law. So this is good. In part, the move against DEI was motivated by changing public opinion. But now it's being put into effect by the government. And that will further transform public opinion to make this seem totally unacceptable. This would be an example, you might say, of culture being downstream of politics. This would be an example of not a liberal or libertarian political idea, the notion that, politics is always downstream of culture, as if you could neatly separate those two, but a more classical political idea, which is that the law is a teacher. And the law, people generally sort of follow the law, and that transforms people's behaviors and transforms people's desires and transforms people's understanding of how the law works. This is great. I want to see more governors do this. This is a proper way to lead, to govern, and to wield the law to give us a better country. Now, speaking of educating young people, there's a new viral trend. Parents are throwing cheese on their kids' heads. The kids are crying. They throw a slice of cheese, and then the kid stops crying. And then the kids get confused. Oh, there's a little slice of cheese. Uh-huh. Oh, the kid stopped. Ha 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 ha. Oh, there we go. That one landed on his eyes. Ha ha ha. All right, that's enough. I hate this. I hate this. Parents should not be using your child, should not be using their children as a punchline. Your kid's not a punchline. Your kid is your kid, flesh of your flesh. Your kid is a proper subject. Your kid, you should be on your kid's side. You should not be humiliating your kid for the dopamine rush that you will experience thanks to the likes of strangers on the internet. You shouldn't be recording your kid for the entertainment of strangers on the internet. If you're doing this, you're being a terrible parent, and you need to stop. I understand people get sucked into social media, and this is a sort of trend that people follow. Just stop. Just stop. This is really bad. Your kid is not, there was a trend, this was maybe a few months ago, maybe more, of parents cracking eggs on their kid's head. Your kid is not an object for you to mock and to give you applause from your friends or from strangers. Your kid is a subject. Be on your kid's side. What absolutely horrible parenting, the kind of thing that is especially accentuated in our social media age. The likes of strangers are not worth humiliating your child, you narcissistic psychos. Now, when you want to do things that are healthy for society and for you individually, go check out Lumen. Right now, go to lumen.me, use code Knowles. It is tough to prioritize your health, especially if you're not sure where to start. However, it's not just about making a decision. It's about making a commitment to a better quality of life. Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. Listen, you know me, I'm not exactly the biggest athlete in the world. However, I decided recently, even to have an intellectual life, one must have one's body in good condition. So, waking up a little bit earlier, maybe doing a little bit of exercise. And with Lumen, I can track my metabolism so simply. It takes no time. It takes no technical skill. It's amazing. All you've got to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning. You will know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. And what sets Lumen apart is the ability to understand you on a personal level. It takes your unique metabolic data, crafts a personalized nutrition plan for that day, tailored to your body's needs and goals. With Lumen, you're not just getting a device, you are getting a health companion. Makes it really, really easy, which to me is the top concern. Right now, if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/Knowles. Get 15% off your Lumen. LUMEN.ME. Use Knowles, KNWLES, for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Speaking of the ideology, Busch still getting destroyed after its dalliance through the Dylan Mulvaney partnership. You remember, this is a while ago now that Bud Light became a punchline because it partnered up with Dylan Mulvaney, this man who mocks women and pretends to be a woman, and sales cratered. And you knew things were bad, Busch, because Bud Light became this punchline. I was at my cousin's wedding, and one of my cousins comes up to me and he says, said, hey, Michael, you want me to get you a drink? I said, yeah, sure, I'd get a drink, And I should have realized, he had a little twinkle in his eye. And of course, he comes back. He's got a glass of scotch or something for himself, and he hands me a Bud Light, and everybody laughs. Ha, ha, ha. Because the implication is, if you're, if you're drinking Bud Light now, you're probably a friend of Dorothy. Okay, you're maybe a little bit light in the loafers. So things were cratering for them. Well, they continue to decline for 4 straight quarters. Sales in North America, which generate a quarter of the roughly $60 billion in total revenue for Busch, it has declined now steadily. Analysts expect revenue to decrease 1.5%. To $3.89 billion. The company's stock has fallen 6% this year. That lowers the market value to about $120 billion, 40% below its high in 2019. Busch now, it's not just that they're losing money, they're also spending an insane amount of money to resuscitate Bud Light. They've spent millions of dollars in marketing. They've tried to buy off cultural figures. They've done TV ads. They put Peyton Manning in an ad. No, guys, Bud Light's cool again. They sponsored the UFC. It's not working. According to Bloomberg News, still losing ground. This is good news for Trump. President Trump made a tweet many years ago, and it's maybe my favorite tweet, other than his endorsement of my blank book, Reasons to Vote for Democrats, which he called a great book for your reading enjoyment. It's my second favorite Trump tweet, and it says, despite the constant negative press, covfefe. Presumably, he was writing press coverage, and he was going to finish it, but he just, he accidentally sent it. He just went to sleep. He didn't even delete it. Despite the constant negative press, covfefe. Despite the constant negative press, we're now being told all the polls are changing. Kamala's winning. Trump's losing it. Trump's VP, he's weird. And Trump is offending black people. And I don't know. I heard a lot of black people in that room were laughing at Trump's jokes about Kamala. And actually, I don't know. It seems like the organizers were really angry, maybe because Trump was doing pretty well. And actually, maybe the media are not omnipotent. If the liberal establishment media were omnipotent, AB InBev's stock price would be a lot higher right now. Bud Light would be selling a lot better right now. You get this media onslaught to defend Bud Light as a symbol of LGBTQ. If the media were omnipotent, DEI would be doing a lot better right now. It wouldn't be being banned on college campuses to the applause of constituents. If the media were omnipotent, there wouldn't be an international backlash against the Olympics right now for mocking Christ and for letting dudes crush women's skulls. This is good news to me for Trump. You're not going to read about how that's good news in the media. But to me, I still feel cautiously hopeful that Trump can pull it out, despite the constant negative press and despite the immense political power of the liberal establishment. Now, speaking of Trump, you remember Green Day? Green Day was this band from like 20 years ago, and they were punk. They were mainstream punk. They're kind of like lame normie punk. And anyway, the Green Day singer, Billy Joe something, he was just at a concert and he held up a mask representing Donald Trump's severed head. He's doing Kathy Griffin like 7 years late. That's how lame punk has gotten. Punk has gone from, punk, like cool man, yeah, down with the system, to doing impressions of redhead comedians, 7 years later or something. But the reason this is offensive, or would be offensive if it weren't so lame, is President Trump almost had his head blown off a couple of weeks ago. And for a while, the liberals were pretending that they were really upset about this and that they abhor political violence. But now they're back at their old tricks. Joe Walsh, who is he's a Republican who only ever supports Democrats. He's one of those, Joe Walsh, I think, is representative of the liberals here. Walsh tweets out just a few days ago. He says, I'm just not a fan of Harris calling Trump weird. Weird isn't serious enough. Weird is inadequate to describe the danger Trump is. Trump is a lawless, un-American psychopath. He's an existential threat to democracy. Calling him weird just doesn't cut it. Existential threat. That's the sort of language that justifies assassination. But when Trump was very nearly assassinated, Walsh tweeted out, I pray that Donald Trump is okay and was not seriously hurt. Kind of weird to pray that an existential threat to your country is not seriously hurt, to pray that Hitler is okay. And he also said, we consider the people we disagree with to be our mortal enemies. We can't continue down this road. Well, I don't know, to call him an existential threat seems to be continuing down this road, to hold up an image of a man's severed head would seem to be continuing down this road. To say that Donald Trump supports Nazis and admires Hitler seems to be continuing down this road. It's not just Joe Walsh. Here I'm referring to the Green Day guy, Kathy Griffin. I'm referring to Joe Biden. I'm referring to all of them. This is what they're doing. Okay. Green Day is doing this in part because it's been a long time since 2004, the last time they made a notable album, and they need some attention. But the Libs broadly are without remorse. And they're without remorse for something they did that was very wicked, which is establishing the justification to assassinate Trump. And they're remorseless about this, in part because they really believe it. Or if they don't believe it, they don't care if he dies. And some of them have more overtly than others called for his assassination. But also because that's their whole campaign. They ain't running on Kamala. They're working overtime now to hide everything Kamala's ever done or said. So they ain't running on her. They're running against Trump. And the only way to run against Trump is to say he's an existential threat to democracy, that he's the worst thing in the world. So they got to run by continuing to buttress the justification to assassinate him. At the Daily Wire, we're on the front lines of the battle for truth, from our uncensored ad-free daily shows to our 24-hour breaking news coverage and investigative journalism. The most trusted voices in media and the most handsome are all in one place. The only place you need to be to get the facts. Join us as we fight the left and build the future. Become a Daily Wire Plus member today, dailywire.com/subscribe. My favorite comment yesterday is from David Aloha 5084. Kamala Harris's connection to Black Americans closely resembles Obama's. Actually, that's a fair point. That's a really good point. Obama's mother was white and his dad was Kenyan, and he grew up in Hawaii and elsewhere in the world. So he's half black. There's no question about that. But he's not in any part African American, other than his own personal experience of growing up in Hawaii or whatever. But he doesn't have any African American ancestry. It's different. So you could say, well, it's all the same if you think that all black people everywhere on earth are the same. But it's very similar. And similar to Obama, Republicans have to be crafty about how they talk about this. The difference between Obama and Harris, though, is Obama, I think, really believed things and continues to believe things. Obama's a fairly intelligent guy, fairly ideological guy. Kamala's not ideological. I don't think she believes really anything in the world, other than she does seem to have this real hobby horse about killing babies. But other than that, I don't think she really cares about crime. She'll change her position. She'll change her position on healthcare. She'll change her position on anything. She's a phony. So I think that the pointing to her racial exaggerations and pivots and things, it's going to be more effective against her because it highlights a vulnerability she has that Obama doesn't, which is that she's fake. Now, speaking of President Trump and violence, President Trump is in trouble again with the media for saying that without him, Israel might not exist.
To vote for Trump. If we don't have the Jewish people voting for Republicans, including people in the House and including people in the Senate, you're not going to have Israel for very long. I'm telling you, you're not going to have it for very long. The other thing is this. You have many people that are Jewish people in this country that hate Israel. Somebody's got to teach these people that Israel is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Okay, and he goes on, and there's some faux outrage. How dare Trump say that without him, Israel wouldn't exist? Well, I don't know. I mean, the Democrats right now are experiencing an intifada within their ranks, and they have members of Congress who are saying from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Multiple members who support the Palestine liberation movement, the goal of which is the abolition of the state of Israel. So that's real. That's happening. It's not just fringe activists. It's people pretty high up in the Democrat ranks. And then furthermore, Trump goes in and he says, and there are plenty of Jews who don't like Israel. There are plenty of Jews who are part of the Free Palestine movement, which is true. It's an important observation that Jews are not monolithic in their political views. And here's the most important part. Trump is appealing to the Jews who might support him. He's not going to win the people at the New York Times. He doesn't need to appeal to them. He's not going to win the people who pal around with Chuck Schumer. He doesn't need to appeal to them. But there are lots of conservative Jews for whom Israel is an important issue. They do support Israel. They want an American president who supports Israel. Not all Jews, but it's the ones who might vote for Trump. And it just so happens right now that the Republican Party is the pro-Israel party and the Democrat Party is pretty fanatically anti-Israel. And this could be politically beneficial to Trump. And so he's appealing to that group. This is what you're supposed to do. It's a direct appeal. And it's not just a direct appeal to Jews, by the way, who support Israel. It's a direct appeal to evangelical Christians who support Israel. It's a direct appeal to others who are just, political observers of the Middle East who think it's advantageous to us to support Israel and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Bahrain over, say, Iran and Iran's allies. It's just making a direct appeal. And I think that's pretty smart. You, as I mentioned on the show the other day, you win the universal, you win the national election by winning the particular, by winning this state and this group and these people and this thing and that thing. The left does it. The left has white dudes for Harris, led by Mayor Pete, and the rest of the gang. But they're even appealing to the group that they constantly deplore, the white men. They know how to play that game of winning the particulars to win the universal. Conservatives should do it too. I think it's very, very smart. Now, speaking of appealing to certain groups, J.D. Vance has been pilloried. They can't find anything on J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is too impressive. He's too smart. He's too normal. His family's too beautiful. He's too reasonable on matters of public policy. He's too appealing in his political outlook to a large swath of voters. So they say he's weird. And they find this one joke he made on Tucker Carlson's show where he said, we're being run by childless cat ladies, our whole country. And they're hammering this joke, this, flippant little line. And now reporters are grilling J.D. Vance's Senate colleague, Josh Hawley, about this. Here's Hawley's answer.
Back to J.D. Vance for a second.
Okay, yes.
Are you worried that his comments, like childless cat lady, could alienate the women voters that you need?
Listen, I just say this. As Republicans, we started by talking about the child tax credit. As Republicans, we should be in favor of helping people who want to have families have families. One of the reasons it's hard to have a family in America today is it's really expensive. I mean, parents have to work 2 jobs to have the kind of purchasing power that 50 years ago you could get on one income. That is not a positive thing. That is not a recommendation of our economy. So that's what we ought to be talking about.
I mean, some people don't want to have kids.
Yeah,
and
fair
I guess
enough.
Should Republicans be talking about women who don't want children in the way that J.D. Vance did?
No.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. The reason Hawley is running from this, again, could we say like J.D. was making a joke on a provocative show, and he's obviously not talking about every individual who matches that description. He's obviously not talking about people who've suffered from infertility or he's talking about a type. He's talking about a stereotype, a caricature. Barack Obama talks about the bitter clingers who cling to their guns and religion, Is he talking about every Christian? No, he's talking about a stereotype and a very offensive stereotype. But in this case, that JD's making a joke. But why is Hawley running from this? There's something instructive here. In politics, you have to give people the ability to support you. You have to give people an off-ramp. This is a point I've made many times. Sometimes I'm criticized in my interviews or my interactions with leftists or others with whom I disagree for being a little too nice or something. I don't know. I think I hold my ground pretty strongly, and but I try to catch them where they are. I try to persuade them. I try to pull them over to my side. I want to give them, if I go on the Whatever podcast and I'm talking to women who are actively producing on OnlyFans, I'm going to have to talk to them a little bit differently than if I'm addressing the Christian Broadcasters Association conference or something like that. And I think that's fine. That's politics. You get to the universal through the particular. And so here, there are a lot of women, not just couples who suffer from infertility, but there are a lot of women who were lied to by colleges and by their teachers and by the media and by Hollywood and by everything. And they were told, don't get married. Oh, kids are terrible. Kids are like a sexually transmitted disease. You don't want them. If you accidentally get pregnant, you should abort the kid. Leads to all sorts of trauma for women. You should now just pursue your career. And then these women, I know a lot of women who've dealt with this problem. They wake up one day in their late 30s or their 40s and they say, shoot, man, I was lied to. I actually do want kids. I actually do want to get married. And then, you do the best you can. That's what J.D. Vance, I am certain, is not talking about that. J.D. Vance is talking about this stereotype and this ideal that the left has, that you actually, it's great to be the childless cat lady of, this type of someone who actually hates family, who hates the opposite sex, who views the sexes not as complementary, but as totally opposed to each other, who hates the idea of children, like that woman Molly Jong-Fast, who said natalism, the idea of having kids, is authoritarian and fascist and right-wing. That's obviously what he's talking about. And so, again, I don't think there's anything wrong with Republicans making jokes and stuff like that. But Hawley's point here is, I think, instructive, which is when you're campaigning, you gotta give people an excuse to support you. You gotta give them that off-ramp. 30% of Gen Z says it's LGBTQ, LMNOP. You got to give them an off-ramp. You got to figure out some way. You say, hey, yeah, whatever, you're doing weird like gender and sex stuff and whatever. Hey, it's all right. Forget it. That's the past. Forget about it. Move on. And don't pillory them. You don't need to necessarily mock them. You say, look, there's a bad ideology. It should be from public life entirely. It's really messed you guys up especially. Okay, move on. Don't worry. You're welcome here. We're gonna fix it. It's okay. No big deal. Let's move on. That's the art of inclusion. Okay, now, speaking of political innovations, one of the big ones is cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. I was just at that Bitcoin conference. Someone asked me a question, and I think he meant the question sincerely. Someone said, would Jesus support Bitcoin? I said, okay, there's a lot to that question. I'm not comfortable giving an answer. I have to think about it. I don't know enough about Bitcoin. I need to ponder that. My guest will help me ponder that. This is Jordan Busch, author of Thank God for Bitcoin, and founder of a group that helps Christians understand Bitcoin and use it even for missionary work. So the rest of the show continues now. You don't want to miss it. Become a member. Use code Knowles, KNWLES, at checkout for 2 months free on all annual plans.
Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me. Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey. If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
Say I'm racist. Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you and less for you. Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging there.
I want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yeah, this country is a piece of shit.
White.
Folks.
White.
Trash. White supremacy. White woman. White boy.
Is there a black person around here? There's a black person right here. Does he not exist? Hi, Robin.
Hi. What's your name?
I'm Matt.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gonna say you racist.